The console war was one of the greatest wars in video game history. But there was also another war during this period, the handheld war. This war brought us the likes of the Sega Game Gear, the Atari Lynx, and the ever-popular Nintendo Game Boy. But there was one more handheld that was left in the ashes of that battlefield. And if it did get more attention back in the day, it might have done a number on the Game Boy. Because it was the closest damn thing to it. It's the Watara Supervision. This is probably the best Game Boy clone around, so much so that the Model 1 looks identical to the original Game Boy, except for the palette changes. But Watara quickly switched to the Model 2, which is the preferred version anyway. The Watara Supervision was introduced in 1992 as a cut-price alternative to the Game Boy. Now I like anything for cheap, but was this worth it back then? I would say no, because it doesn't have the greatest gaming library. But is it worth it now? Absolutely. It's an interesting system that ought to have the same following as the Vectrex. Now that's maybe a bit of a stretch, but it's still an interesting system nonetheless. As we have a closer look at the system, we see the screen boasts of its high-quality stereo sound, much like the Game Boy would boast about its dot matrix and stereo sound. Since these are basically the same kind of handheld, there are many similarities between them. But an obvious difference is that the Supervision screen is bigger, which may make things easier to see. But much like the Game Boy, the Supervision also suffers from a blurred screen. Pea soup green equals not meant to be. But the system does have some good qualities like an altogether D-pad and two big turquoise A and B buttons which are very comfortable and easy to press. The start and select buttons are conveniently placed right next to each other on the top here. And I like how they also had to tell you that the start is also the pause, as if you didn't know. On the bottom we have the speaker and headphone jack. Now the music for Supervision games aren't my personal favorite. I find them irritating to listen to. But that's probably just because I like the sweet Game Boy music from games like Super Mario Land. But it could just be me. On the sides of the screen we have the AC adapter jack, the contrast knob, the volume knob, and the COM insert. This is used to connect the system to an accessory that connects to the TV. And this is 2 years before the Super Game Boy, so this beat Nintendo to the punch. On the back of the Supervision you have your battery pack. This holds 4 AA batteries and can last a long time. I don't even remember the last time I've taken the batteries out, if I've ever had. On the top back we have these 2 stands. Why does the system have these? Well, if you're wanting to play the system like it's a keyboard, you just bend the handheld like so. This is the super way to play. As I've already mentioned, the gaming library for the Supervision isn't really anything to write home about. There was at least 70 games released for the system. Most were made by Watara and other low-profile third-party developers like Bits. So it lacks great third-party support, but it does have good games, like Crisp Ball, the Breakout Arkanoid clone. They come in average sized cartridges and these pins are exposed for the whole world to see. The Supervision is a forgotten handheld of the handheld war. It's more like the Game Boy's jacked up lost cousin. Is that saying much? I don't know, but if you're able to find one, you ought to pick it up, because much like the Odyssey clones, it could be worth something someday. Especially when a clone can somehow make the original look like crap. It's the Watara Supervision. There are gaming wars in each generation, and in each war you have systems that are remembered and systems that are forgotten. Some go on to create a great legacy, while others are left in the ashes. But some lucky few are left in said ashes, but afterwards go on to create an even greater memory. Which is why on the next episode we're going to have a look at the console that dared to dream. If you think I missed anything, please leave a comment. If you like what you see, leave a like. If you think others could get knowledge out of this, share this video, and if you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Now if you'll excuse me, nostalgia is calling.